May I proceed? Please introduce yourself to the court.
My name is Dr. Reginald Quincy.
What do you do for a living?
Well, my favorite job is what I do on the weekends. You see, I run one of the most successful tractor pull teams here in the whole state. But from Monday to Friday, I'm the head medical examiner here at Midland Center.
And why are you here today?
Well, I was the one who performed the autopsy and wrote a report of my findings after the tragic death of little Parker Page.
Now, before we talk about your findings, please discuss your educational background.
Certainly. So I went to the Ohio State University to get my undergraduate degree, and then I went to the University of Virginia to get my medical degree. Go Cavaliers.
Can you discuss your postgraduate career?
Yeah, so after med school, I started in pediatrics, but have you ever worked with kids, especially sick kids? Man, I'll tell you what, they are some of the most disgusting creatures on this planet. Snorting and crying all the time, getting crap everywhere. I couldn't take it anymore, so I had to step back from that, and that got me into forensic pathology, which led me here today.
What is forensic pathology?
Oh, now I could talk about this till the cows come home. But in a nutshell, forensic pathology is figuring out how and why somebody died, usually by performing an autopsy.
How do you perform your autopsies?
I use the EIEIO method, according to myself.
Has the EIEIO method been tested?
Yes, it has.
Is it widely accepted in your field?
My colleagues don't like to give me credit for the acronym, but yes, it's widely used.
Does it have a known error rate?
Yes, it does.
Have you reliably applied your method to the facts of today's case?
As I do every time, yes.
And finally, is your testimony today based on sufficient facts and data?
Yes, I was given a numerous amount of information that I could draw my conclusions from.
Now let's break that method down. You first mentioned external. What is an external examination?
External examination is basically taking the body as it lies when it comes in out of the van. So we look for any cuts, any bruises, abrasions, that sort of thing, anything on the skin level.
And now next is
Objection, Your Honor. Based on 702, counsel has not laid foundation, meaning all the prongs of 702. The witness just responding yes to various questions from counsel does not constitute that he actually fully responded to all the different points of 702 in order to show that he is qualified to give a report on forensic pathology. Counsel.
Your Honor, we have met the 4 prongs of Rule 702, if I may. The 4 prongs of 702 require that the expert's knowledge will help the trier of fact, that the testimony is based on sufficient facts and data, that the testimony is a product of a reliable principle.
Counsel, let me stop you there. I think you did ask those questions, and I believe I did hear this witness say, yes, it was a reliable method. Yes, I applied it reliably, but I didn't hear why it's a reliable method or how they applied it reliably. So I'm going to sustain opposing counsel's objection. Can I get some more foundation on those
Of course,
points, please?
Now, Dr. Quincy, have you been published using this method?
Yes, I have several times.
Now, has this method been subject to peer review?
Yes, all of my colleagues read over my articles when I publish them and give me feedback on it.
And now, breaking down this method further, the second part is I. What does an internal investigation consist of?
Well, there's 2 main parts to the internal investigation, the first of which deals mainly with the chest cavity. So we would make a wide incision here, open
Objection, Your Honor. I re-raise my objection. The witness has, to 702, the witness has not shown how it is reliable. He's again just stated that it is reliable, but has not shown how it is reliable.
Counsel?
Your Honor, we've laid the facts of reliability, relevant case law, Midlands Readers Association versus Merrill Dow establishes a checklist that is not a definitive checklist, but has been used to establish reliability under Prong 702C, and we have laid the foundation for all of those.
Your Honor, may I respond?
And what do you have about this checklist?
So the checklist, it does not say that it's a checklist. It says that it is multiple things that can be used by the judge in order to make a ruling about whether or not evidence has been given. But the main qualification, especially pursuant to your earlier ruling, is that the witness must show how it is reliable, giving specifics on how he made sure that what he was doing was reliable in the standards of his field. Just saying that it is reliable is not enough.
Your Honor.
1 second. So just to clarify, your issues on not that the methods are reliable, but that he applied them reliably.
Yes, sir.
That's the problem that we're at stake here.
Yes, sir.
All right, counsel, what's your response to that?
Well, we have attested to the reliability of the method. I can lay further foundation of his experience and how.
So again, I'm not concerned with whether the method's reliable or not. I think it's pretty clear. It's peer reviewed. This EIEIO method seems to be very solid. But when he conducted this method or this test, like was he drunk when he did it? Did he apply this test reliably? Did he do it to his fullest extent, or did he get halfway through and decided, oh, I'll just phone it in?
Now, we were explaining the method, and if we would be allowed to explain the method and move on to the assessment of Parker Page, he could then explain how he reliably applied the method that he will explain to you.
Your Honor, if I may.
I'm going to stop you right there. I actually do agree. I don't really think that this expert witness gave his conclusion right now. It's just talking about the method. But I do want to play this out. Please feel free to raise your objection later if you feel like they haven't shown that he applied these methods reliably, but also please lay that foundation that he applied these methods while sober and so forth.
So I don't believe you finished speaking of the internal investigation. What does an internal investigation consist of?
Yes, where was I? Oh, yes. So the wide incision of the chest cavity, we open that up, take a look at all the vital organs, make sure everything's squared away there, take temperature mainly of the liver, and we weigh all the internal organs there. And then the second part of that is we take x-rays of the entire body, but mainly looking at the extremities and the head to get a good idea of what's going on with the subject's skeleton and the bones, just to get a good idea of what's going on beneath the skin, the internals.
And finally, how do you construct your observations?
Well, after the second E, and that's double checking all of my work as I always do, I take everything from the external investigation, everything from the internal investigation, put them together and see what comes out of it.
Now, let's discuss your assessment of Parker Page. Starting with E, what did the external investigation reveal?
Yeah, so when the body came into me, I took a look at the external as the body lies. I noticed several abrasions and bruises, mostly on the right side of the body. However, there was one bruise in particular that really caught my attention, right here on the left collarbone.
Moving to I, what did your internal examination reveal?
Again, there was a lot of fracturing due to the subject having osteogenesis imperfecta. Now that's brittle bone disease, so Parker Page would have been more susceptible to bone fractures and breaks and the like. But there was a lot that was consistent with someone who would have taken a tumble like she did. Except again, there was one fracture in particular that caught my attention, again, right on the left collarbone.
And finally, O, what is your observation in this case?
Objection, Your Honor. I'm going to raise the 702 objection to the O method. On direct examination, when asked to describe the O method, Dr. Quincy simply stated, I take E and I and put it together. I don't believe that meets any of the prompts to show that that is a reliable way to give an observation. It doesn't show how he puts it together. It doesn't show why he puts it together. It doesn't even show that when putting it together, he uses any kind of reliable method. He just said he puts it together.
If I may.
No, thank you. I'm going to overrule your objection. Quite frankly, I don't know how the E and the I come together for the O, but apparently everyone else in the field does, and they all use it that way. So I do think that this method is reliable, even if he hasn't testified in in-depth detail about what exactly happens during this method. Please continue.
What is your observation in this case?
We have taken everything together, including my double checking of everything, and with some additional information provided to me by Detective Chesney after the initial autopsy, I can say to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty that Parker Page's death was a homicide.
Well, what supporting evidence were you given?
Well, Detective Chesney came to me and brought me several items that were found in the defendant's possession, one of which was the hiking stick, and that matched perfectly to the bruise on the left collarbone.
If I were to show you that hiking stick, would you recognize it?
Absolutely.
I would be approaching the witness and opposing counsel with what has been previously entered into evidence as exhibits.
Thank you.
Now, how can you tell that that hiking stick matched this bruise?
Well, you see, somebody with osteogenesis imperfecta, now, in addition to being more susceptible to bone breaks and fractures, their skin has a tendency to exhibit a special property known as hyperlaxity. And now essentially what that is,
Judge, Your Honor,
Yes.
currently, no foundation has been laid to how this expert would understand osteogenesis imperfecta or be able to give any kind of medical diagnosis of osteogenesis imperfecta.
Response?
This witness has his medical doctorate, and we have established that he has an extensive educational career, has worked in pediatrics, and is now the medical examiner of Midlands.
Your Honor, they have not laid any specific knowledge of osteogenesis imperfecta, which requires a specialist in order to diagnose and treat. They have not laid how he would know how osteogenesis works, any publications, anything of that nature. This is not a forensic pathology question. This is a question that deals with what happens with someone that's alive with osteogenesis imperfecta, which is outside his realm of knowledge.
It's close, but I'm gonna overrule you for now. Thank you for your objection, it's noted.
How can you tell that that stick matched that bruise?
yes, where was I? Hyperlaxity, yes. So the skin of somebody with osteogenesis imperfecta has a special property, and to understand that, I kind of have to explain what laxity in general is. So let's say you were sitting at a football game on Friday night. You're sitting on the bleachers, and when you get up, you have a general imprint of the bleacher pattern on your leg. Now that will probably go away after about an hour or two. Somebody with osteogenesis imperfecta who has hyperlaxity, their skin would leave a more precise imprint of the bleachers, and it would stay much, much longer on the skin, upwards of sometimes even 2 weeks. And because of that, I matched the end of the hiking pole perfectly to the bruise on Parker Page's skin. I might be able to explain a little better if I could show you.
Permission for Dr. Quincy to step down and use of the demonstrative.
Sure.
Now, what do we have here?
Now this is a block of clay, and this is going to be used to demonstrate the skin of somebody with osteogenesis imperfecta. Now, to compare to somebody without would have a skin consistency more closely related to, let's say, a brick. Now, you may be a little confused as to why I'm comparing skin to a brick, but if you strike a brick, you may leave a mark, you may even crack the brick, but it's not going to be a precise imprint of whatever struck the brick. Now with this wet clay that represents hyperlaxity, if we take the end of the hiking pole and strike the
Objection,
clay,
Your Honor. This is much more prejudicial than probative, and it misleads the jury. By Dr. Quincy striking the clay as he is with the staff, this leaves an impression in the minds of the jury that this is what happened on the day in question, and he cannot testify that this is what Ms. Jordan Ryder did with the staff. All he can say is that that staff made that mark, but he cannot stab a piece of clay violently. It misrepresents and is prejudicial against Ms. Ryder.
Response?
Your Honor, this is a demonstration of skin hyperlaxity. We have no claim. Dr. Quincy is not using this to demonstrate what allegedly happened that day. And opposing counsel's objection was that this is substantially more prejudicial than probative, but the probative value is merely scientific in that it is explaining skin hyperlaxity, not going to show any acts of violence.
All right, I'm ready to rule. I think I agree with the defense here that it has to be substantially more prejudicial than it is probative. If this was perhaps, a dummy of a small child with blood gushing out of it, I might be more likely to favor. But I do think the probative value, if it doesn't outweigh it, it's pretty close, and it's certainly not substantially outweighed.
May I ask that he press down instead of violently stabbing at it? It gives the same kind of conclusion to the jury without being needlessly violent in order to influence the decision.
I'm sure, but I think the jury's already seen it at this point, so change that volume and all that. It's
Yes, sir.
Please continue.
Now, with that brick representing skin hyperlaxity, what happened after you struck it?
well, you see here, after I made the imprint on the clay, it perfectly matches the pattern on the bottom of the hiking pole. And I used that to match up the hiking pole that was found in the defendant's possession to causing the bruise that was found on Parker's left collarbone.
And thank you, you may take your seat.
Thank you.
Taking all of this into account, what can you conclude to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty about the death of Parker Page?
After taking the autopsy, Parker's previous medical conditions, and the additional evidence brought to me by Detective Chesney, I can say that Parker Page's death was a homicide.
Thank you, Dr. Quincy. No further questions.